Hey, this is Aaron Fink from Grapple City Rewind. If you like what you hear on this episode, please give us a follow, leave us a review, cut a promo on us. Anything goes. It'll go a long way in helping us to be discovered by more wrestling fans like you. All right, let's cue the music.
Hello and welcome to Grapple City Rewind, taking you all the way back to the pay-per-views that shaped wrestling history. I'm Bradley Palermo, here as always with my co-host Aaron Fink. But Aaron, before we dust off the old VHS tapes, what's going on in the current product world of professional wrestling?
So much. I was going to talk about NXT from Tuesday, which is now last week, at the theater at Madison Square Garden. Amazing show, top to bottom. Standout matches for me were the Hardy Boys versus Fraxium and Jordan Grace versus Roxanne Perez. But top to bottom, excellent show. Not going to dive into it too much because the thing that I do want to talk about with regards to current product is what I saw on Monday Night Raw a few hours before we started recording this, and that is a confrontation between John Cena, your favorite wrestler in the world, and Cody Rhodes. It was very interesting. It wasn't what I was expecting. Cena came out to his normal music, normal clothing, to a sea of booze. They were in Brussels, Belgium, which is why I was able to watch it so early in the day. Right. But really interesting because they booed him immediately. And then, the music starts and everyone's singing, John Cena sucks, John Cena sucks. So it's fun. And it was a long, like 20, 25 minutes where they were just booing him and, yelling profanities at him. And basically his whole promo was about how he's in an abusive relationship with the fans and the fans are the abusers and have been for 25 years.
Oh, man.
And while I wasn't expecting him to go down this road, he did come off like a whiny bitch, and I do dislike him. So I think it worked. I was probably more on the side of wanting little to no talking from John up until maybe right before WrestleMania. But it worked. Cody came out at the end and they had a little back and forth and Cody put him in his place. And yeah, I enjoyed it. It was unexpected, but I'm still intrigued. And even though it wasn't exactly what I wanted, I am totally fine with letting the people in charge of this story have my benefit of the doubt for a while.
I think I am liking this, even though I haven't seen Raw yet, that everyone else finally feels like I do about John Cena. I can be a part of that Cena thing now that we're all on the same page, that Cena sucks. Even though I remember, even when he came out to NXT, like probably a year or two ago, everyone was like, let's go Cena. And there was like one guy and you could hear him in the back. Cena sucks. All by himself. And then Cena stopped and acknowledged him. I appreciate the honesty. So he seems like a cool guy. I just never really liked the character, right? So
yeah. And this is cool because I think you're going to like it, because a big part of the promo was like, I worked so hard and you were on my side for maybe like a year. And then it was just the same again, just treating me like shit. And to the people who are my fans, this is the interesting part. To the people that are always been my fans, you're the worst, because all you do is take and take and take. You don't ever think about me. You just want photos. You want autographs. Da 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 da. I was like, okay, yeah.
Pretty funny.
Yeah. What about you? What current product stuff interested you? Did you see anything fun this week?
I stopped in. I saw the film Queen of the Ring.
Nice. I do want to see that. How was it?
It was good. It was starring Emily Rickards, who I don't know who this person is from any other movies, but she was really awesome in it. It's a biopic of Mildred Burke, which I was familiar with. I was just like, oh yeah, a big wrestler from the 30s and 50s. Yeah. But obviously didn't really have a story to go with it, so that was cool.
Yeah, I also, same boat. Like, I know who she is and that she existed and how important she was, but I don't know anything else beyond that. So
in the movie, it's her with this promoter played by Josh Lucas, who's the voice of Home Depot, which I learned today when I was looking up who's this guy.
I didn't know that.
Yeah. So previously I had a podcast called All the Heels, which focused on the TV show Heels. I was interested in this because in the trailer that I saw, it had a lot of the visual elements that were reminiscent of Heels, and it even has one of the same actresses in it, Kelly Berglund.
Mm-hmm.
Then I saw that Toni Storm and Trinity Fatu and Jim Cornette and all these like wrestling personalities were in it. So I had to go check it out. I would say it's kind of a must-see as a wrestling fan.
Nice.
If I'm honest, as far as like just in the general sphere of film, it kind of felt like a play. It's really heavy on the exposition. Some of the smaller characters do kind of feel a little bit like reenactment, like not like the most like knock it out of the park piece of film history, but it's a piece of wrestling film history.
It deserves our support.
Yeah, you get 2 decades of Mildred Burke's career. So it's fast. It's just hitting the points. It's getting you the info. It's a period piece. So it's pretty. It's like, Louisville, Kentucky in the 30s, 40s, and 50s. So that's cool. I got to say that this Ash Avildsen guy, who's the director, he was there at Revolution, AEW's pay-per-view that I was at. And I was kind of curious about him. So I looked him up. He's the nepo baby of the director of Rocky. So that's probably how he got to do this with all these like cool wrestlers.
Who was the
and
director
stuff.
of Rocky?
Well, the director of Rocky is John G. Avildsen.
Okay, that's right. Stallone wrote it. That was the thing that he was. Yeah.
So
John
Ash
G.
Avildsen, he's got this movie, and he's also got this record label, like this really trash record label with a bunch of early 2000s Victory Records style bands. So I was like, before I saw it, I found all this out, and I was like, dude, I don't know if I can trust the taste of a guy who's like putting out like, whatever these bands are called. I Cry of Sirens and Scream of, I don't know.
What is like Victory Records for the uninitiated? What does that mean?
Victory
like
Records.
That style or whatever.
Oh no, it's like Victory Records from like the early 2000s.
Yeah, but what are bands from there? I don't know. I don't know that record label.
I don't know, what is it, like Black Veil Brides or some shit?
Okay, I see. So you're referencing Sumerian and saying it's like Victory.
It's like bands that were literally on Victory 20 years ago that should have been done by then.
Hawthorne Heights. Okay, yeah. Streetlight Manifesto.
He's got Dillinger Escape Plan. I mean, that was cool like 20 years ago. Hawthorne Heights. Kitty.
I liked Hawthorne Heights when I was a little emo
Hollywood
teenager.
Undead, possibly one of the worst bands.
Oh yeah, Silverstein, Taking Back. Okay, but yeah, I know all these bands for sure. Okay,
Slaughter to Prevail, Sleeping with Sirens. I mean, he's got the Smashing Pumpkins, but like, come on, it's been 30 years since they've done anything good. Anyways, this guy's got bad taste in music, so how could his, movie do? But it was all right,
Those things are not mutually exclusive.
Which is why I still went to see the movie.
Good.
But the craziest thing about this fuck is he doesn't just make the movie. He puts himself in the movie, and he doesn't just put himself in the movie. He puts himself in the movie as Vince fucking McMahon Sr. So
amazing.
The guy's a little bit self-indulgent,
Name me 5 people in Hollywood who aren't.
Right. But it is cool to see wrestling's transition from the carnivals to the ballrooms, and it's very over-explained. So if you don't know what a face is, a shoot is, a work is, they're going to kind of hit you over the head with your wrestling vocabulary, much like the show that I did podcast before, Heels. They do that a lot. I think it's because otherwise you're not going to know what the hell they're talking about unless you're like an inside fan.
Yeah, they want to appeal to people who aren't wrestling fans, and that's good. It's never a bad idea to, and WWE does this all the time, like explain things. It's not the end of the world. Sure, you could potentially run the risk of your fans who are always engaged and know everything getting bored, but it's only for like a minute, right? And, so I think that overall, that's probably a good thing. I'm very excited about the movie. I did not get a chance to see it yet, but I will be seeing it, and I'm glad that you enjoyed it, and I hope that everyone else goes out and watches it as well.
Yeah, and then my friend left to go get a refill, who isn't a wrestling fan, when we were watching the movie, and he came back, he missed the explanation about shoot, and there was this whole scene about like go in there and shoot, and
he's like, what?
He looked at me afterwards, he's like, why don't they explain what shoot is, And he's just, because he's so confused, like she's gonna fuck her up for real, So it is important. Yeah. But I would say, like, manage your expectations. You got to see it. It might not be, the second coming of that movie, The Wrestler, or even the Iron Claw. But I mean, it's good. If you're a wrestling fan, you're going to be into it.
Awesome. Yeah, that's great. Well,
as always, you can find us on social media at Grapple City Pod across all or most of the networks. If you want to call, disagree with us, agree with us, cut a promo on us, 626-657-SLAM. That's going to take you to a Google Voice voicemail. No one's going to pick up.
All right, well, I guess we should get on to our main topic of the episode, which is King of the Ring 1993. This was a fun one. This was the first official King of the Ring tournament, the first official King of the Ring tournament to be part of a pay-per-view. And this took place in Fairborn, Ohio. I had a funny experience watching this. It reminded me of the days when I was 8, 9, 10 years old, and I would shake, my parents say, please, can we go to Blockbuster Video or Hollywood Video or whatever the video store was? And I would run to the wrestling section and I would see what VHSs they had. And I swear, I remember this poster. Like, I remember this VHS sleeve that it went in. I don't know if I watched it when I was a kid, but certain things felt familiar. Maybe it was the Hogan and Yokozuna match. Maybe I watched it later on in life, but that felt super familiar to me. Right. But a fun pay-per-view. The first chunk of the pay-per-view was the King of the Ring tournament. We had 15-minute time limit first round matches. And the first match of the night, Brad, why don't you tell us about that one?
Oh, I forgot my homework at home.
Uh-oh.
I'm just kidding. Yeah, the first match of the night was Bret Hart versus Razor Ramon, which I was thinking, this is the first time since we started this podcast that we've seen. No, it's not. Not the first time we've seen Scott Hall, but the first time we've seen Razor Ramon, right? Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. And I was just thinking about his Scarface references and his razor blades on his shorts, which are obviously a reference to drugs and how that all went right over my head as a kid, of course. But I was like, this is a fucking Cuban coke dealer. That's what this guy is playing. But it's so cartoony when he's up there. It just kind of goes right past you.
Yeah. Something I noticed that was fun is Bret Hart did the thing that he always does where he comes to the ring, he takes off his purple glasses, and he gives them to a fan, a young kid. And I noticed that Razor flung his toothpick at that same kid for like 10 seconds
got the same
after. Kid. Yeah. And those are those little details that I absolutely love about people like Bret Hart and Razor Ramon. They just have such an eye for attention to detail.
Yeah, that's great. I think I was waiting. I think I missed it with the kid, but I was waiting for Razor Ramon to get Bret with the toothpick right in the face, because that's kind of what used to happen. But I guess it was already gone. He already got the kid.
He did, and also I think this was. Actually, I guess I can't remember when this takes place in history. 1993. Did Shawn Michaels and Razor Ramon have the ladder match yet? I think that was WrestleMania 10, right? So that's definitely not.
I'm not sure, but it made the. For those that can't see, I'm holding most unusual matches ever on VHS right here.
1994, yeah. Okay, so this was before that. So this Razor Ramon, I think, was still really getting going. I don't think he'd even been around for more than a year at this point. So yeah, this was a really, really fun one.
And of course, Ramon is coming off the heels of getting essentially squashed by the 1, 2, 3 Kid, right?
Yes, that's right. The crowd was chanting 1, 2, 3. So for people who aren't aware, Razor Ramon is a bad guy. He's a heel. You probably know who he is. And if you don't, you can look him up and you'll understand who he is in a minute. So he had a match with a young, small baby face named the 1, 2, 3 Kid. And 1, 2, 3 Kid beat Razor Ramon pretty quickly, I think, right? It was like a huge upset match. Nobody thought he would win, and it made that wrestler, who eventually went on to become X-Pac in Degeneration X, Six in the NWO and WCW. He had a very, very long career, but it all started when, he beat Razor Ramon out of nowhere. And I remember they showed that match back again. It happened when I was like 3 years old, so I clearly didn't watch it. Yeah, but they showed it all the time.
All the time, yeah. It's classic. I think it was at the Hammerstein Ballroom. 1, 2, 3 Kid. he'll always be 1-2-3 Kid to me, but he was the only guy that I think was in D-Generation X and the NWO, which they were kind of mirrors of each other for the two major promotions at the time.
Yeah, the two biggest factions during the Attitude Era, for sure. All right, let's get back to the match because we got a lot of matches to talk about. So this was a short match, but honestly, by all accounts, in my opinion, a perfect match. Like nothing wrong with it. Bret focuses on the arm for a few minutes. He uses his speed to his advantage and tries to keep Razor down with holds. The match psychology, just why the wrestlers are doing the things they're doing and when they're doing them, perfect. Bret Hart went for a tackle in the corner, but he missed and hit the post, which then allowed Razor to start controlling the match. And Bret wins with a reversal of a backdrop off the middle rope. I mean, just like bing, bang, boom. I don't even think it was 10 minutes long. It was like 6-7 minutes. Amazing. Crazy hot opener.
I was surprised. I knew that Bret had a lot of siblings, but he's one of 13. That's crazy.
I did not know that it was that many. That's a lot of siblings.
Yeah, I think the facial expressions too on Scott Hall during this, where he plays it just perfectly. You know, the pain, and he was stomping Bret's fingers, which kind of plays into sort of Bret's condition for the rest of this thing.
Yeah. This is an exciting pay-per-view because it's not like what we see nowadays. There's a tournament happening throughout the pay-per-view, and Bret Hart is going to have to wrestle multiple times. I won't spoil how many just yet. So after the Bret Hart Razor Ramon match, there was a very quick little recap package about The Undertaker being attacked by a contestant in the next match, Mr. Hughes. And so this next match was Mr. Hughes versus Mr. Perfect, Curt Hennig. Had a couple of moments that didn't feel as smooth as they could have been, especially, in juxtaposition to the Bret Hart Razor match where everything felt perfect and snug and seamless. But overall, I felt like this was pretty entertaining. The crowd was behind Mr. Perfect. Interesting finish. Mr. Hughes had Undertaker's urn, which he used to attack Mr. Perfect in the match, in the middle of the match, and then got disqualified and lost. And I was like, man, you not a smart fella, are you, Mr. Hughes?
I think the most interesting part about this match was that they did like a picture-in-picture interview with Bret Hart in the middle of the match and asked him, well, whoever wins this match is gonna face you, Bret Hart. So which one do you want to see win? And I feel like Bret Hart was kind of shooting a little bit. He was like, I want to see Mr. Perfect win because I like him more, because he can actually wrestle. And this other big fucking lug is just gonna be a brawlers match, and I don't really like to do brawlers matches. So
yeah.
I don't know. Did you kind of feel like, having seen Bret Hart do so many interviews since, his wrestling career has ended, didn't it seem like he was kind of saying what he really wanted to say in that a little bit? Kind
of. I mean, I always feel like the best promos or the best moments where wrestlers are talking is when they're speaking, 70% truth, 30% maybe not so true. So yeah, it did feel pretty honest. But it made sense, with Bret's character. He's very like tactical and likes to think things through.
Earnest.
Yeah. Did you notice when Mr. Perfect came in, he flung his towel behind his back and it landed perfectly on Mr. Hughes' shoulder?
Wow. Yeah. So I rewatched it today. The second watch through, I don't have to take notes and shit. So
yeah,
he flung it behind. Did he fling it behind his back?
Behind his back. Yeah. He went
like a fucking Harlem Globetrotter. Yeah.
Yeah. With a towel, and it landed.
I was like, there's no way he knew that towel was going to land perfect on Mr. Hughes.
I don't think he did, but it was awesome.
Dude, that was so good. Yeah.
Yeah.
And then we had a Yokozuna promo with Mr. Fuji. Yokozuna, of course, Rodney and Hawaii, first cousin to Rikishi, part of the bloodline. It's just cool to see.
Yeah, I got some thoughts about that.
Yeah.
We'll talk about it later, though, when he wrestles.
Yeah, he's not from Japan. He's from Los Angeles, went to high school in Daly City, San Francisco. And I'll just say really quick, while I'm thinking about it, I just got the new PlayStation game, WWE 2K25, and they have a whole Bloodline series where you replay the actual matches.
Nice.
Taking the directions of what really happened in history, which you can either choose to follow or not. But the second match of the Bloodline thing on that game is the one that's from King of the Ring 93 with a Yokozuna and Hulk Hogan that we'll talk about later. And then we moved on after the promo to Hacksaw Jim Duggan versus Bam Bam Bigelow. Two motherfuckers just
Two big
stuffed into their
guys.
clothes like fucking sausages.
Bam! Bam! I forgot about that. Dude, I love Bam Bam. I was scared of Bam Bam as a child. So this was great. I haven't watched something with him in it for many years.
Yeah. And Hacksaw is just great. He's got that page boy haircut and he puts his hands on his hips and hey-oh! Just
yeah, he's pretty funny.
The two of them are great. But yeah, Bam Bam has that heavy New Jersey accent. He sounds like Nick Gage or something, you know, one of the.
And he's missing a tooth, and
probably more than one. Yeah.
Yeah. So for people who don't know, Bam Bam Bigelow is like 6'4", 6'5", 390 pounds from Elizabeth, New Jersey, I think, or somewhere in New Jersey. And he is bald and has flame tattoos on his head going around his head. So a very intimidating guy. Fun match, though. I mean, like, they're such polar opposites. Bam Bam is just like, no nonsense, I'm going to kill you. And Jim Duggan's just like, USA with his 2x4. Oh!
He had two American flags.
Yep.
I think Bam Bam, his favorite move is to jump off a shit head first, flying headbutts.
Guys, yeah, that's how he won the match with a flying headbutt.
Yeah, ultimately he won that way. Yeah, I was thinking about like that American flag waving thing was just an easy way to get like babyface pops back in the day. And
I was thinking of the same thing, and I have thoughts, that we will discuss in later matches. I noticed the same exact thing as you, man.
But I've seen it used the opposite way once when I went to Mexico. QT Marshall came out waving that fucking thing in Mexico City, and dudes are just throwing full beers and pitchers and candy like at his head. Like Amazing. He's getting fucking assaulted. I was like, it's so cool after seeing that my whole life. You know, you're a little baby face USA, and then it gets turned against you. But yeah, not much else to say about that match on my end. I think that we got the headbutt for the win, and that moves Bam Bam Bigelow
to the quarterfinals?
The quarterfinals.
Semifinals? I don't know. He's on to the next round. Quick match. Shows Bam Bam's dominance. I feel like this was under 10 minutes as well. And then after that, we got a quick little backstage with Billy and Bart Gunn and the Steiner brothers for their upcoming match. Good to see Billy Gunn as a youngin. Good to see the Steiners as youngins. We just saw them in the WCW pay-per-view from last episode, but this is 4 years later, and they're in a new company. So after that, we had our next match of the King of the Ring tournament, which was Lex Luger versus Tatanka. This was an interesting one. And the first point at which I was like, man, WWF in the 90s was fucking racist, but it's okay. Tatanka's music, his entrance is someone just going like, hey! Like, are you kidding me? Wow.
I mean,
but this is an interesting match because both men were undefeated coming into the matchup, and you don't get a lot of that nowadays. So I was excited about it. I remember liking Tatanka as a child. I remember him visually, because how could you not, with his like red rectangle in his hair that kind of looked like a mohawk.
Yes, and then a mullet in the back. I was going to say we should start doing, best hair of the pay-per-view segments, because
it might need to be crushed, dude. That mullet was out of control. Yeah. Oh my god.
The colors on the Tatanka one, the bright red business.
There's a blue.
In front.
Is there light blue in the back or something?
I think it was just brown. There probably is blue. I don't know. I did look up to make sure that this guy was Native American, because I'd be like,
he is. Yeah, he is.
Fucked up if it wasn't. He is. And then I looked up to see what he's up to today. He's very, very active on social media. He has a proclivity for the price of eggs, Marco Rubio, and I think he kind of wants to fuck Donald Trump.
All right, well, let's leave it at that. Let's not get political. Oh god. Okay, well, there was another interesting thing at the beginning of this match. The ref made Lex Luger put an armband on to cover his surgically repaired forearm, which I guess was an unfair advantage because it had a screw in it or something. Did that make sense to you? That felt like some
Yeah.
90s stuff that just like, I'm like, yeah, whatever, I don't care.
Yeah, so Lex Luger was legitimately in a motorcycle accident between WCW and joining WWF.
Okay, I did not remember that.
And yeah, he had an interesting transition because he went to Vince while he was still in WCW as like a Vince's bodyguard or bodybuilder. Anyways, then he got into an accident and he did have like some sort of steel putting his elbow and forearm back together, and he was, as a heel, he's using this for an unfair advantage to smack people with it and win matches. And at the beginning of this match, they announced that Commissioner Jack Tunney will not allow him to wrestle unless he covers up that reinforced elbow, shoulder, whatever the fuck it is, elbow, forearm, which of course in wrestling, that means it's going to be somewhat part of the finish
or something. It's going to make an appearance.
Yeah, but we'll hear a lot probably about Lex Luger in the coming days because he's going to be inducted into the Hall of Fame this year.
Yeah, congrats to him. That was those videos that came out were very, very cool, very inspiring. Happy that he's gone through a lot of tough shit in his life and he's doing well. And props to Diamond Dallas Page. Diamond Dallas Page is, man, such a great person. To help as many people as he's helped, it's amazing.
Seems like it. I wonder. I know Lex can like stand up and maybe like grab something here and there. He has some mobility, like for short bursts. But
I'm sure he's going to try and stand and walk to that podium. Yeah, I mean, if he can. I think the last video I saw, he felt like he wasn't, or he's on Busted Open a lot, and I think he called in and said he doesn't know if he's there yet, but he's certainly going to try. So
yeah,
good luck, and we're rooting for you, Lex.
It starts off with a fucking mirror being used against him. We can start there.
Yes, that was amazing. Yes, Lex Luger is the narcissist in WWF at the time. He's a bad guy, a heel. So there is a very fake mirror in the ring, and he just poses in front of it for like 45 seconds to a minute. And then Tatanka's music comes. He runs down the ramp, comes out hot, and then throws the fake ass mirror on top of Luger. And you're like, oh, it's the plastic mirror. Cool.
I kind of wanted to see Tatanka jump on the mirror once the mirror was already on top of Lex, but
yeah. That's
your
GCW not that kind of fandom coming into play.
Yes. Yeah. I've seen so much bloody wrestling that I was like, oh, clearly that's what you do next. But no.
This was a fun match for sure. A lot of back and forths. It ended in a time limit draw, which is something I was not expecting. And even more, I was not expecting what the repercussions of them ending the match in a time limit draw would be. So because nobody won the match, they both got eliminated and Bam Bam received a bye. So he was automatically put into the finals of the tournament, which I was like, I guess that makes sense, but never would have thought that was how it was going to play out, There
was no there are 3 minutes left for this match. So it was almost like the wrestlers
just the commentators that said something.
And then Lex grabs the mic, which kind of surprised me. He did the 5 more minutes thing, which I thought was more modern. Mm-hmm. And then when he did the 5 more minutes, I've seen it so many times, like on AEW, you almost expect him to be like, and I've got Tony Khan in my ear right now, and he has granted the 5 minutes. But, there's no Tony Khan. Tony Khan's 4 at this time or whatever. And
Jack Tunney says, it's over.
Yeah, Jack Tunney's, what Jack Tunney says, the rules is the rules. So
I do not remember him at all, by the way. Like, I didn't watch a ton of this because this was, again, I was 4 years old when this happened. But I don't remember Jack Tunney being in charge of the WWF. All I ever remember is Vince, because that's the only thing that you do remember if you watched in the Attitude Era.
Jack Tunney was only the commissioner for 2 years. And when we were little kids playing with our action figures, I remember CJ Guilford, the kid down the hill that also play with the wrestling things. He'd always be like, no, well, Commissioner Jack Tunney says this. Or, he would always put that into our playing. So yeah, he was in there for a second. He was just a fucking Canadian promoter, friend of Vince. Vince at that time was trying to make people believe he was an announcer and not spill the beans that he was also the owner. So it was short-lived.
Speaking of, did you notice that JR was on this pay-per-view? And he's not normally doing pay-per-views in the early 90s of WWF.
Yeah, and
This was the only pay-per-view he was on in the early 90s. I read all about it because I was like, oh shit, JR. Because JR is the voice of my childhood from Raw and from pay-per-views in the late 90s and early 2000s. But this was 1993. So I read up on it, and like, he left WCW very, very shortly before this. They had him start working some non-pay-per-view stuff. I think this was the first pay-per-view he ever worked for them. And then he might have done one or two more, but then he was off, and because Vince wanted to start doing commentary more. And then JR had his first Bell's palsy attack, and they fired him.
Oh my
and then
God.
he came back like 2-3 years later, and then that's when we start. That's when JR comes into like the zeitgeist of WWF, and we remember him. But yeah, I was like, oh, JR, that's so fun. And JR not with the King, like JR, Bobby Heenan, and Macho Man is a really interesting commentary table.
Yeah, I was gonna say we should have prefaced it with the commentary team, because it is kind of a classic, or it's kind of a special combination of legends there between the three of them. I also thought it was funny that wherever the fuck in Ohio this was, I guess somewhere outside of Dayton, they kept calling it. It actually had Vince in the intro, but nowhere else on the commentary.
Heartland
but
of America or something.
From the heartland of America. And I'm from the American heartland. No one's ever called it the heartland of America. Only like a New Yorker would say that. You either call it the heartland or you call it the American heartland. But I was like, and they say it a lot. Like clearly it's like a Vinceism, like it was written in the notes, because JR has to keep calling it the heartland of America. And it's probably said 13 times on this thing. But you're like, dude, just say Dayton, Ohio. Like, are you, it's not. I mean, I've been there. It's, maybe it's not the most exciting place, but I mean, you don't have to hide the fact that you're in Dayton, right?
They were excited. Can I say, before we move on from the commentary discussion, you texted me as I was watching this and said there are some pretty funny Bobby Heenan quotes. And so I started paying attention, and my God, there were some pretty funny Bobby Heenan
good
quotes.
Ones. Yeah.
I think my favorite was Bobby Heenan asks JR, who do you think is going to win the King of the Ring? And JR says, well, I don't know. And then Bobby says, well, of course you don't. You're from Oklahoma. Like, what? The other one that I really liked, and it was extremely racist, was last time I saw this many Japanese people was at Benihana.
Oh my God.
When the reporters came out for the Yokozuna Hulk Hogan match. Oh.
I have a list we can get to after we get through the matches, but I do remember one that's not on the list. That's something to the effect of Bobby Heenan talking about the time limits. And he's like, you got to really pay attention to the time limit. You got to know what you're doing. You got to jump on your opportunity at King of the Ring. Otherwise, you're going to be stuck living in Dayton, Ohio. And boy, is that fun. I was like,
nice.
That's a pretty good one. So yeah, he's a great asshole, man. I really appreciate it. I wish, he was still around and on social media, just making. I don't think later in his life he was up on all that stuff, but I bet he would have had some good quips.
Oh man, yeah.
Before we move on to Bret Hart and Mr. Perfect's promo, Luger did ultimately, after the 5 more minutes that wasn't granted, use the special metal forearm thing and get to Tonka. Yeah. If anyone was wondering where that would lead to.
It did play out. It did play out. They did pay off their plant.
And then we had a short promo with Bret Hart and Mr. Perfect. I think Mr. Perfect was a babyface, and so was Bret Hart, right? So in this one instant, they sort of turned Mr. Perfect temporarily.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, he was getting cheered in his first round match. Mr. Perfect was, and yeah, this promo was interesting because Mr. Perfect basically heard what Bret said when he was wrestling earlier when we had that picture-in-picture, and he was like, "What do you mean I'm this and I'm that?" And so yeah, it was perfect to add a little bit of spin to this upcoming match, because for those who aren't aware, babyface versus babyface, good guy versus good guy, there's nothing wrong with it, but sometimes you don't want your crowd to have to make the choice of who they root for, who they root against, especially if they're both likable people. So they made it real easy for the audience. They made Mr. Perfect, be the heel for the match. And this was the first and only semifinal match with a 30-minute time limit.
And I would say this is for me, the match of the show,
The card.
best
Yeah.
match of the show. It was
Yeah.
what some would call a real wrestling match: headlock takedowns, grappling, chops,
Incredible
suplexes.
match.
It has a story, it has an arc. It gets a lot more rough and a lot less technical as it goes on.
Mm-hmm.
It kind of start
Mm-hmm.
off with a little bit of respect for each other, and it kind of ends sort of with a little bit of more outside of the ring
Do you see
aggressiveness.
that crazy bump that Bret took into the metal railing? That was the one where I was
Yeah.
like, oh, dear God, that looked
Yeah.
bad. But everything, I mean, Bret Hart is and always will be the best there is, the best there was, and the best there ever will be. He is a fantastic technical wrestler. He makes everything look real. And yeah, I agree. Match of the night, amazing psychology for the match. Mr. Perfect became a heel so easily. It speaks to his versatility. You
Mm-hmm.
know, like they might have not even needed that promo, and you could have
Right.
all like in the first 2 minutes, you knew, oh, he's doing some bullshit. Like, boo, let's go, Bret. You know,
I was thinking about current product, and how it relates to matches
mm-hmm.
like this, and
Mm-hmm.
I feel like CM Punk got a lot of his shit from Bret Hart. I feel
Oh
like
yeah, he
a
loves
lot of
Bret
those
Hart.
holds, a lot of those moves. Yeah.
He loves Bret. I mean, he talks about it all the time. Yeah, and if you're gonna pick from somebody, man, what a person to take from.
Speaking of CM Punk, Bret knocked over a cooler with a lot of Pepsi. There's a lot of Pepsi all over the ring, all over the side of the ring. I
Mm-hmm.
don't think today like athletes would have buckets of Pepsi.
Nope,
It'd be like
just bottles of
Prime.
Prime now.
Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah, definitely match of the night. There's a point where Mr. Perfect just like kicked it into a next gear and just really went to try and win the thing. And he made some small mistake, and then Bret just started honing in on the knee, focusing on the knee, trying to weaken it for his finisher, the sharpshooter. He puts him in a figure four, which I not what I would expect Bret to do,
Not at all.
but very cool. And this is the moment where the figure four is on for a while. They finally break it up, and Bret starts to try and put the sharpshooter on. But then Mr. Perfect starts to attack Bret and his hand from
Yep. The
the
fingers.
first round against, who was that? Razor. Yeah.
Razor, yeah.
Amazing. Oh my God, dude. I totally forgot about my favorite spot of the match, which was something that I didn't even know they did back then, which was the vertical suplex over the top rope where they both stay holding each other and fall to the floor. Holy shit, dude.
That was crazy. Yeah, I had that one in my notes too. That was the craziest spot.
For back then, I mean, like 1993, I just don't remember people doing that back then. And that's
Yeah,
something that happened even now doesn't happen super often because it's really dangerous.
it's crazy shit. Also, Mr. Perfect, he's great, but he kind of has that Shawn Michaels oversell thing. Sometimes you throw him into the turnbuckle and somehow he like flies 6 feet up in the air and does a cartwheel. You're like, okay, like you can just fall over. But I mean,
Yeah.
I like that the '90s like cartooniness of it sometimes. But that it's about as close as you're going to get in this era in WWF. Sorry, something that looks completely legitimate.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. And this ended with Bret reversing a roll up to get the win, heading on to the finals where he will wrestle Bam Bam Bigelow later in the match. And our next match of the card is for the WWF Heavyweight Championship, and it is the champion Hulk Hogan at the end of Hulkamania versus Yokozuna. Yokozuna is billed as being 550 pounds. My God, that is a big man. And as I said before, Hulkamania has been around for almost 10 years by this point. The crowd is still very much behind him, though. And the first thing that I thought of in seeing these entrances and before the match started was like, man, yeah, this is why you need a good heel just as much as you need a good babyface. Because, like, to do the same shtick, Hulkamania, for 10 years, that's a long time for the same thing to work. And I would
Right.
have to imagine, because I don't remember all of the heels that he went up against, but I would have to imagine that those people played a really big part in it. And this is another example of that with Yokozuna. He dominates in the early moments of the match. Like how wouldn't he? He's so big. You know, they play again with the idea of if Hogan can just slam this giant monster, maybe he'll be able to win.
Right.
You know, harkening back to WrestleMania 3 with Hogan versus Andre. It was not my favorite match. I don't really like Hogan matches because he wasn't a very good worker. I understand, like, I like Hogan and Andre. I like the matches that have good story, but this, to me, I just felt kind of detached from it. And also this, when I started watching it, I was like, I remember how this goes. I remember this match because this is the match, folks, where Hulkamania dies, or at least we think it does.
This is the final Hulk Hogan match of the WWF for the next 9 years.
Yeah, which is insane if you think about it. Like, I look at this match and I'm like, okay, yeah, 10 years, it's good. It's good that they're done. This so okay, to call back to what we were talking about earlier, Yokozuna is not Japanese. He is a Samoan man. And the fact that he's so clearly not Japanese, as me being an adult now in 2025, I feel like pretty shitty about that. He was a fantastic heel. Don't get me wrong. Like, this is not taking anything away from what he did, but you're trying to make a fucking Pacific Islander look like or you're trying to pass off a Pacific Islander as a Japanese person. That's not going to work, especially when you have Mr. Fuji, an actual Japanese person, as his manager standing right next to him. My God.
Next to him. But did you notice that? Because I was going to say, are they going to say he's from like Osaka or something? But they said that he's from a place that, to my understanding, doesn't even exist. The Polynesian island, it says at the bottom. Because there's several Polynesian islands,
There's
and they're
there's like hundreds of Polynesian islands.
thousands of miles apart from one another. All the way from ones that are kind of close to the U.S. to ones that are kind of close to Australia. But like, yeah, I thought they would say he was from Japan, but they said he's from the Polynesian island. From the Polynesian island.
That's so weird. Yeah, I wonder what it was like for adults who were fans back then. Like, they had to know that he was not Japanese, so maybe this was more for the kids than anyone else. But the thing is, this is going to lead into the second thing that I said I would bring up later. When I look at this match and the way that the crowd rallies around Hogan with USA chants, it made me happy that we've gotten away from using the fact that people are foreigners as reasons why they are villains. Like, it still happens, but for example, like when Gunther comes out and talks a bunch of shit, people don't chant USA. They boo him, or they chant Yeet for Jey Uso.
Mm-hmm.
And it makes sense to me that it would head this way, given that WWE is now like a global product.
Right.
And the wrestlers' characters have a lot more realism and personality to them now than just like being a cookie cutter character. But I'm just very happy that we're at a place where like he's Japanese, boo, you know, like USA.
Even as a kid, I was like, later, but not that long after, it was Lex Luger was sort of like the USA tights wearing guy against Yokozuna. And they had him like a warship slam Yokozuna, and it was very like boo to Japan. And I even as a child, I was like, what? We're not at war with Japan. Like, what the fuck is this? It's like,
yeah, that was like 50 years ago, guys.
Vince's childhood, like, fantasy from when, World War II. But like when I was a kid, that was way the fuck after that. And I thought we were allies with Japan. I don't know what the fuck is happening right now.
Yeah, well, it's like the typical Hollywood thing, right? Where Russians were bad guys throughout the 80s, Vietnamese, and then we got Middle Eastern people. The tropes carry on throughout history. It's silly, right? Like when we watch it now, we have to suspend our disbelief. This guy, like, I think the biggest thing for me is like, you just look at his face. Like, you can see he does not have Asian features. He has East Asian Pacific Islander features.
Yes.
But, it is what it is. I did not like Yokozuna as a child. I was scared of him. So he did his job. That's it. He was a great heel. But
he was.
I'm glad we don't typecast people as being other races than what they are anymore. Thank God.
Yoko slammed Hogan very easily. I took note of, which I kind of like that. The match was very slow, other than a couple of little spots. There was the classic old school minutes long bear hug that I never liked, even as a kid.
Mm-hmm.
Doesn't
Mm-hmm.
look real. It just looks like two guys like hugging each other and grunting. And so there was
Mm-hmm.
that. Yokozuna ultimately hits Hogan with a leg drop for the win and hits a bonsai drop after the bell to add insult to injury.
And becoming the WWF champion, sending Hulk Hogan running away to WCW. But one thing you forgot to mention is there was a very, very weird, wonky, thing that led up to the finish, which is leading up to the match, they were talking about how there were members of the Japanese press here to cover the match, and you had reporters and people with cameras out by the ringside. So towards the end of the match, something happens on the outside with Mr. Fuji that distracts the referee, and then a reporter or a journalist comes onto the apron and gets ready to take a picture, and Hulk Hogan walks over, and then all of a sudden the camera explodes and there's a fireball and it goes into Hogan's face and he's blinded temporarily, and that is what allows Yokozuna to get the advantage, drop the leg, and become the champion.
God,
so
that's loaded with a stereotype too. That's
the hits just keep on coming, man. It's just I say what you want about the characters and the work, amazing characters. Hulk Hogan, Hulkamania was a very important part of wrestling, but Hulk Hogan kind of sucks now. Okay, newsflash to everybody. Right. So this match came and it went, and on we went to the next one. Why don't you lead us into it?
Well, we did have a Shawn Michaels promo with Diesel, which I was kind of excited to see. And Shawn Michaels,
they named I don't think Diesel had been named before this interview, or at least that's what I was kind of led to believe, because Mean was like, "Who is this man?"
Oh yeah, that's Diesel. And Shawn Michaels, Shawn Michaels made a Jurassic Park joke about Hogan. I do think at this time, by the way, that even as early as like the 92 Rumble, the crowd was starting to turn. Some crowds were turning on Hogan. Like people were kind of getting onto him, catching on to his bullshit a little bit here and there. But yeah, you got fucking Shawn Michaels right after Hogan's last match in the WWF. The first thing he says is basically like, "See you later, Jurassic Park." There was a lot of pop culture references on the show too. You had like Michael Jordan, Charles Barkley, Jurassic Park kind of puts you in that time. We are in the early 90s for sure. But the match following that, I don't really think it's worth talking too much about. It's an 8-man tag match, not my favorite thing. It's got Ted DiBiase, IRS, the Head Shrinkers, Smoking Guns, Steiner Brothers. The former few were the heels and the latter few were the baby faces. It's about what you expect.
It was just lackluster because I think the crowd was still reeling from Hogan losing. Yeah. They did try to do the thing. Sorry, just to go back to Hogan for a second. They did try to do the thing where like the crowd is stunned in silence, and then we hear boos, and then they cut to shots of kids who look upset. Yeah. But they're not crying like when John Cena kicked Cody Rhodes in the nuts 2 weeks ago. So you can tell that this was kind of a lackluster thing, and the crowd was quiet, and they were quiet through this tag match.
Yeah, and Billy Gunn rolled up DiBiase while he was showboating, and then we got a promo with Yokozuna and the infamous Jack Tunney.
Yes, the celebration that they're going to have.
Why don't you go ahead and take us to the next
This was a better match. Yeah, the next match was Shawn Michaels with Diesel versus Crush. Like you said, a better match. I remember Crush as a character. I don't really remember him doing anything of note, and that's because he didn't really do anything of note, like in terms of his individual progress throughout the company. But I think Crush is the front runner for best hair of this pay-per-view because his mullet, my God, so much party. He had like 1.5 foot of party in the back. My Lord, that is just, he took a long time to get that grown out.
Crush eventually joined Demolition, and that's all
Right. You're right.
But he was kind of like, an afterthought of Demolition, which was a Timu version of Legion of Doom. So it's, I mean, he's cool. He's a big guy. He
had a lot of charisma, had some bright colors. This was for the Intercontinental Championship. I enjoyed the match. I always loved Shawn Michaels. Crush is okay as in ring. What was the highlight of this match, though? And I want you to see if you can find a clip of this. If there's a way to get this in our social post, I think we need to. the the match ends because Doink the Clown shows up with a copy of himself, two Doinks walking in tandem, smoking cigars,
Yeah.
and they distract Crush, who I guess has been feuding with Doink in recent weeks.
Yeah.
And Shawn Michaels gets the win and retains the Intercontinental Championship.
Do you remember Dink and Doink when they had a
I
little
do
person?
remember Dink. Yeah.
When I was, so I'm one of three brothers, but I'm the oldest. I would take my youngest brother, and he would be Dink, and I would be Doink, and we beat up the middle brother. So like I pick up Dink, and their legs start spinning in the air like a fucking
Yeah. Like a
And
hamster in a wheel.
yeah, and just drive him right at the other brother's fucking face, whatever, and we'd be singing.
Yeah, Doink the Clown. That was another one where it's like, okay, yeah, you're definitely only for the kids here. But then when I look back on it now, I just laugh. I'm like, how did they get away with like a mean looking guy in clown outfits and makeup smoking cigars?
Yeah, it's crazy, but I mean, it's kind of fun to watch now that I know more about how things work. Like Crush is just dominating Shawn Michaels the whole time. Michaels is working underneath, so to speak, and then, like you said, all it took was a little bit of distraction and an interference from Diesel, and Shawn
Mhm.
Michaels not just wins but retains. Right? It was an
Yeah.
international.
Yep.
Bret Hart versus Bam Bam Bigelow for
What
the
a
final.
match. My God. Almost maybe this one and the Mr. Perfect one are tied for me on this
Yeah.
pay-per-view because this match was so good too. It was very long, very drawn out, but they played up the struggle. I mean, Bam Bam is much bigger than Bret. I thought it was a fantastic match.
Yeah, I think the thing that works against it, as much as Bret Hart's like my favorite wrestler and so many other people's favorite wrestler, is I've seen Bret Hart twice already at this point. So, I just don't feel that like internal spark as much when he comes out, but it's still a good match. I had Bret Hart getting thrown really hard into the barricade on this match that looked super stiff.
Maybe it was twice then, because I feel like it happened in the Mr. Perfect match. But yeah, he took a lot of bumps, a lot of good looking bumps. How did this match end? I don't remember. I mean, I know Bret won, but how did he beat him?
I mean, let's see. Luna Vachon came out at some point, hit Bret with a chair.
That's right. Yeah.
Luna is terrifying.
Yep. She scared me as a kid.
Bam Bam seemingly wins, right? But the decision is reversed.
That's right.
Due to the chair shot that Luna does. Another referee comes out and is like, no, there was interference. And the match continues.
Mm-hmm.
And then Bret wins. But he doesn't put him, he pins him. He doesn't put him in the sharpshooter. So 3 Bret Hart matches without Bret's finisher, which is interesting.
Yeah. Yeah.
And Bret becomes the first King of the Ring, which is kind of a lie because Bret is actually, at this point, won King of the Ring before, but King of the Ring was a house show concept. So it was Bret's second King of the Ring, but first on TV. And as we know in wrestling, it doesn't really count unless it happens on TV.
Mm-hmm.
So he gets a sparkly purple robe, a throne, a crown.
This is the thing that
other kingly props
kind of launches Bret Hart into the stratosphere, right? I mean, he was popular before, but I think this is the launch pad, isn't it?
I think so. And it's the end of what we would call the golden era of the WWF and the beginning of the new generation era. I think we should probably watch WrestleMania 9 next because a lot of people claim that was the night when the golden era ended and it launched this new generation era, which this is only a few months after that. This is the summer of 93 that we're talking about right now.
Okay, yeah.
WrestleMania 9, I think, would have been April before that. But yeah, you're looking at like Hulkamania phasing out, Hulk Hogan leaving completely, and Bret Hart sort of was the new Hogan. I don't think anyone, especially Vince, understood what he had until about this time. Like, oh, this isn't a huge guy. This guy's not even, from the United States, but he is your next big time champion. Of course, Jerry Lawler had to stick his nose in all of it, and
he's the original king, right? So as Bret Hart is being as his coronation is happening, Jerry Lawler shows up and, does the normal Jerry Lawler thing, which is, I'm the only king. You should get on your knees and kiss my feet and you'll be my prince. And so he attacks Bret when Bret decides that he does not want to do that. And I think we end the pay-per-view with Bret on the ground, hurt.
Which is great,
setting up his next feud.
Now you really got to turn into Saturday morning or whatever and see what happens. But yeah, the crowd's chanting Burger King at Jerry Lawler, which he obviously hates, and nobody helps Bret. And Randy Savage is on commentary. He's supposed to be the babyface commentary. So I was kind of like, come on, somebody help him out. What the fuck is going on?
He got up out of his chair to congratulate Bret when he won the tournament, but didn't want to get up and help him when Jerry attacked him. I see how it is, Macho. I see.
My favorite Bobby Heenan quotes from this particular pay-per-view: Mr. Hughes has never lost a match. Well, except for the ones that he actually lost. Stupid, but good. Hogan's in great shape for someone who's been retired for 3 years.
Fantastic.
Good. You know why Bret Hart wears... Dude, back then people thought it was hilarious to, feminize a guy or men wearing pink was like really funny to people back then. You know why Bret Hart wears pink? So his mommy can find him in the mall.
Oh boy.
What's next? King Bret's royal decree? Everyone must wear pink.
These Bobby Heenan.
You know what razor is spelled backwards? Razor. Think about that. That's probably the best one.
That's what all these Bobby Heenan quotes remind me of something that Dave LaGreca would say on Busted Open.
Yeah.
I don't know why. I just feel like Bobby and Dave are kindred spirits.
Oh man, I hope we get more Heenan on commentary. I guess I'm sure we will because I do want to keep track of the little one-liners. They're not the kind of things that are like funny enough to like really laugh at, but they're so stupid that they're dad jokes, I guess is what I'm trying to say.
Yeah, I love dad jokes. Before we end, I did also want to say that I have been watching a show that WWE is putting out on A&E called Legends and Future Greats that I've really been enjoying. It's, I think, on the 5th episode this week, and basically the premise is there are 4 coaches, Mickey James, Booker T, The Undertaker, and Bubba Ray Dudley, and they have 4 students on their teams, and they're helping them progress to become wrestlers. And whether that's working on in-ring stuff, working on promos, working on psychology, I feel like it's a really cool look behind the scenes in ways that we don't normally get to see. And the episode that happened this past weekend on Sunday was especially good. Had CM Punk come in as a guest. They had Eric Bischoff in the week before. So it's been really great. If y'all are interested, if you like nonfiction stuff, I would highly recommend that you check it out. It's called LFG Legends and Future Greats on A&E on Sunday nights.
All right. And I know we're kind of going over our time a little bit here, but we do have... Let's see. But should we take some voicemails, emails? Maybe I'll skip the email right now. Voice message.
Yeah, if we got a voicemail, we have voice messages. People actually care.
Let me see. We got one right here from Tim and Chico.
Hey, I'm just calling in to let you guys know that I think you're doing a great job. I know nothing about wrestling, so I think your barrier for entry is extremely low. As again, my knowledge is nothing, but that's wrestling. I feel like that's the way it should be. As far as suggestions, I think you guys should do the pretty underrated newest Netflix wrestling special. I think it was called Tyson versus Paul. You guys should check that out if you haven't yet. Thanks. Bye.
Yeah, I mean,
ouch.
I guess you could call that wrestling. It was definitely
it was terrible. It was a fucking work is what it was. He's right about that.
Some people thought it was a work is what I was going to say. So.
It was a work. Oh man, it was absolutely a work. We could talk about that for 5 minutes. All I'll say is Mike came out hot for the first 30 seconds of that first round. I was like, oh shit, he's going to kill him. And then he missed something. They had a clinch. And I'm pretty sure Jake was like, yo, dude, stop fucking trying to kill me. And then he was just like, all right, I'm just going to go like this. And I'm going to keep biting my gloves so that I don't actually punch you in the face as hard as I can. Yeah. Stupid.
Kind of wrestling-esque. They had the Paul brothers and the fucking, I think they drove out in a car. Well, of course they had the Paul brothers. One of them was in the fucking thing, but the other Paul brother from WWE was in the car with him.
Newsflash, the entire world steals from professional wrestling. This is not new, but it is happening more and more in every facet of life.
Yeah, if you want to give us a call, like I said before, you want to cut a promo on Aaron, you want to cut a promo on myself, you want to cut a promo on both of us, that's 626-657-SLAM, 626-657, whatever numbers it takes to make the word slam. If you want to email us, grapplecitypod@gmail.com. Give us suggestions. What pay-per-views should we watch next? What things were we wrong about? Give us some corrections. Give us some suggestions. On social media, X, IG, even TikTok, if we feel like it, we are at Grapple City Pod. I think next episode, I really think we should do WrestleMania 9 because I'm really interested right now in this whole transition between the golden era and the new generation era. And if that's supposedly where it all went to hell, and I think it involves Hogan and Yokozuna and Bret Hart, we might as well strike while the iron's hot and sort of, get more into this part of the story.
Absolutely, yeah. I'm probably never going to say no to any of your suggestions, so let's do it. Let's go a little bit further back in time and see what led up to what we just watched.
All right, well, that's all we got for today. I want to thank everyone for listening, and we will be back as soon as we possibly can.
Thank you. Bye-bye.